to make it mandatory to all listed entities to have a policy of promoting gender diversity at board level and to disclose how they are performing against this policy. Government's continuing improvements in regulating business through DTI codes, whose key requirements are black executives management as a percentage of all executive directors and black female executive managers as a percentage of all executive directors. It is refreshing to learn that large corporates have created now a culture of competitiveness between themselves on the adoption and implementation of gender mainstreaming policies. And research conducted by PwC shows that South Africa continues to lead its global counterparts when it comes to senior leadership roles and female representation at board levels. It is well established that the domination of women by men is highly linked to economic empowerment and control. Therefore, a meaningful end to gender inequality begins with combined effort by all sectors. Honorable Chair, despite our legislative and policy interventions, as well as our united efforts across sectors to build meaningful participation of women in decision-making and executive structures of our economy, our biggest challenge remains the psychological barriers that have historically distinguished men from women. Poverty alleviation thus become a process and project that compels government, private sector, civil society to work together in changing the social status of our communities and building confidence models. Women can no longer be left out of the mainstream. They must be involved in the value chain of the global economy. Thank you, Chairperson.
The Honorable Robinson.
Honourable Speaker and members, looking at the newspaper headlines and listening to the news, which all contain horrific examples of gender-based violence, murder, bullying and sexual abuse of the vulnerable, from innocent toddlers to the elderly who should be respected and revered, one might be excused for thinking that we are living in the midst of a war zone and not a democratic state that has been emancipated from the bonds of the past. In her recent book, Kwezi, Redi Hlabi writes about the tragic story of Ezekiel Kuzwayo, that we are caught up in a war fought on the bodies of women. What has South Africa learnt from that rape trial about the barriers to justice for women who approach the law? Have we fully confronted the entitlement of men in positions of power and demanded action? The answer is no, honourable members. Think of the number of women who are not assisted when laying charges of assault or trying to obtain protection orders. In addition, 99% of warrants of arrest granted in terms of the Domestic Violence Act are not served, so women continue to suffer violence. SABC clearly doesn't care about the rights of women. Government needs to empower women. The development of job opportunities and economic prospects is key in order to bring about an improvement in the status and quality of life of women and children. Through financial independence and development, the patriarchal attitudes of men that demean women can gradually be eroded so that women and girls can have a brighter, more prosperous future with equal opportunities and equal pay. Finally, in the words of Fezekile from this brilliant book, which should be required reading for every schoolgirl and woman, she said, "My mother and I are nobodies. My father died fighting for freedom, and the movement does not really care about widows and orphans. It doesn't." Colleagues, Umama, Nosisi, the time has come for us all to say, Kwanele, Kwanele, genoeg is genoeg. Let us all as women stand together and demand gender justice, equality and economic opportunities for all. Let us demand a justice system that works for all, rich and poor, for human rights, for bodily integrity. Let us bring up our sons to respect their mothers, sisters and all females. Let us call on fathers, uncles and all parliamentarians to set the example and not to be abusers, whether in word or deed. Let us put an end to gender violence and demand our rights to an efficient justice system and to a government and SABC that cares and protects the rights of all. Sufficient funding needs to be provided. Justice must be seen to be done. Let us not be victims any longer, but victors. And together we can make our society worthy of our Constitution. Let me just read you the front page. Betrayed in childhood, vilified by her country, her name reclaimed in death. Colleagues, ladies, women, those who descended from the brilliant women of 1956 who marched, all colours, all creeds, all races, to say enough is enough. The inequity must stop. Let us stand together now and do exactly that. This is a remarkable book. We must not forget these circumstances and how women themselves turned on a woman, a fellow woman. We must stand up for one another's rights and make sure that justice is done. Enkosi kakhulu, ndiyabulela. Malibongwe igama lamakhosikazi. Malibongwe. Yeah. Thank you.
The Honorable Kaula.
Ngibonge sihlalo. Uyabona nje lo mnyango uhluleke kwancama ukusebenzela abantu besifazane. Yena uminister uqoba ufakazi. Ayikho into eyenziwe lapha, instead of that lapha izimali okufanele beziya kubantu aziyi. Ngokomnotho labantu ayikho neyodwa into abakhululeke ngayo. Buka nje lendlu. Umama waseMawodi Ward 53 wathenjiswa ngo-210 kwathiwa uzokwakhela indlu kuze kube manje akanayo, uhlala endlini ngathi eyinkomo, udlulwa ngisho imfuyo kababa kaDuduzana umbona nje. Somlomo ohloniphekile mhlazi ngu-15 kwephezulu umhlaba wonke ubungaza usuku lwabesifazane kakhulukazi abasemaphandleni. Lo mbungazo waqala ngomhla ka-15 October inhlangano yamazwe omhlaba onke ngenhloso yokuphakamisa igama lamakhosikazi ayizinsika nemindeni emakhaya ikakhulukazi emaphandleni ngenhloso yokuthi bathole uxhaso ukuze bathuthukise kwezolimo nakwezomnotho. Kodwa kuyimanje akukho nokugodwa okubonakalayo abantu besifazane bethuthukiswa. Instead of that bayahlupheka. Even nezingane zabo abakwazi nokuyisa ngisho ezikoleni ukuthi bakwazi ukuthola imfundo ephakeme njengoba ningafuni ukuxhasa imfundo nje. Njenge-EFF siyakholela kakhulu ekutheni inkululeko yesizwe iyoqala mhla kwakhululeka imbokode ukucwaswa kwezomnotho nakweminye imikhakha kuphinde kube yile nkinga yokuhlukunyezwa kwethu njengembokode. Abesifazane bayizisulu zokuhlukunyezwa nokuphathwa njengezilwandle. Kucwasa kwabesifazane kwehluleke ngezigaba. Okokuqala ucwasa ngokwebala kanye nabo bonke bebala elimpisholo bese siphinde siphathiswa okwesigqila abantu basemakhaya sincishwe amathuba nasezindaweni zokusebenza. kungekudala nje sifundile ezindabeni ngonogada odlwengule ephindelela abafundi abangaphezulu kwamashumi angasishiyagalombili kwesinye sesikole zamazinga aphansi labadlwenguli badinga ukuthi ingalo yomthetho ibaphathe ngesandla sensimbi sithi kwanele inkinga yokuhlukunyezwa kwabasifazane isiqondane nayo yonqo isikhiphe iphele nya emphakathini yakithi ukufukulwa kwabesifazane makuqale la kwezemfundo imfundo mayibe mahala futhi ibe sezingeni uhulumeni makabe nohlelo oluzoqinisekisa ukuthi ingane namantombazana ezisemaphandleni yizo ezihlomulayo uqala kwimfundo mahala okubuhlungu ke ukuthi siyazi ukuthi lokho akusoze kwenzeka kulo hulumeni we-ANC sekuyolamula yona EFF laba ke bayithina yona EFF izintambo zombuso ngo-2019 sasiziphethe washo out nina mabaphathe kahle abantu besifazane ezindaweni zokusebenza nemigomo elawula ezabesifazane ibabhekelele njengabantu abayimigogodla yasemakhaya bengabi izigqila nengcindezi ngabatholi nethuba lokunakekela izikhalo ziningi eziqhamuka emakhaya kuyimanje emakhaya abantu babulawa beyokha amanzi babulawa izilwane ngenxa yokuthi abanakekela badlwengula misha yonke asikaze simbone iWomen's League ishayitoyitoyi Minister lomnyango lo ukuhlulile nkosazana zamenye indlela ngcono ngenani vele uvale kuze kufike thina EFF uzobona uzohambela mama angikuze nomthi angiqhubeke mina angikuzo
the honorable Hlengwa
awubheka ama-toilet abantu besifazane abasebenzisayo uhlulekile nina nihlulekile nemsebenzi nibaqashisa ngocansi
hayibo kahle phela mama
Honorable Speaker, the mortar mix that built our democracy and freedom was not mixed with water but with the blood, sweat and tears of women who through their selfless sacrifice sustained the struggle, particularly at the darkest and toughest of times. We owe our freedom to the thousands of the great sung and unsung heroines of our struggle. Women delivered us our democracy, and both the IFP, I pay tribute to those giants of our struggle on whose shoulders we stand on today. 23 years into our freedom and democracy, the biggest question before us is, have we done enough to push back the frontiers of poverty, patriarchy, struggle, abuse, unemployment and inequality, which have become defining features of the daily life of the girl child and woman across our country? Sadly, we have not. For every government failure and for every prevailing social ill, it is women who bear the brutal brunt double-fold of these shortcomings. When healthcare collapses, women must become medical practitioners and caregivers. When policing collapses, women become security personnel in the street and at home. When education collapses, it is women who must become teachers. The list is endless, as even pay disparities in the workplace continue to undermine women in favor of men who at times are underqualified. The continued rape and abuse of women, which has characterized our social discourse, stands as the greatest indictment alongside poverty and inequality of our democratic dispensation. Honorable Speaker, what message do we send to society when advertising continues to objectify women in a sexual manner? We must begin a process of reviewing advertising standards, norms, and content, wherein we move away from the sexual objectification of women and rightly celebrate the success of women and encourage the optimization of their potential. Women are not commercial entities. Let us now, with a new and genuine commitment, move beyond the rhetoric and tokenism and in real terms empower women and push back the frontiers of patriarchy. Let us get the girl child into school and boldly raise young women of our nation who are not marriage fodder, but equal citizens capable and able to make a meaningful contribution into our economy and democracy. A new commitment where job interviews are respectful and fair, conducted in the boardroom and not the bedroom. A new commitment of men who stand up against women abuse and with the conviction which they deserve and declare #not in my name. A new commitment to say we are not free until women are liberated. #women freedom in our lifetime. Through quality, education, equality, security, economic emancipation. Honorable Speaker, ngifuna nje ukugcina ngokuthi asiqalekise lo mkhuba wamablessa. Amadoda amadala aqathamela amantombazana ukuthi sizwe sini lesi abantu abadala bengasayiboni izingane zawo ukuthi gcizelela impelitha kufundwe ukuze umuntu angahaleli imali yendoda kodwa abe nemali yakhe ngoba lo mkhubu wona sokuyiwona ongcolisa ama-university so ke bonke abathandazayo abangene esiguqweni ukuthi blessers must fall. It cannot be that we subject young women to the dangers of violence which is characterized by blessers, the exposure to risk in terms of healthcare and disease. The time has come for us to walk the talk and ensure that we protect young girls, young children from the vultures who come in the form of blessers. Finally, Honorable Speaker, ngiyafuna nje ukukhala ukuthi ngempela if the department receives a budget of less than 200 million rands, but we are able to build households for 246 million rands, speaks to a case of mistaken priorities in terms of our own budgeting system. I thank you.
The Honorable Mncwabe.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, honorable members. The icon of South Africa's democracy, the late President Mandela once said, and I quote, "Freedom cannot be achieved unless women have been emancipated from all forms of oppressions," unquote. The question we have to ask ourselves today is, are we free, or does democracy equate to freedom? If the answer is yes, then there's nothing to debate. For the very essence of women's emancipation is freedom. There can be no doubt that women, and black women in particular, has historically been the most disadvantaged and marginalized of all our people. Colonialism codified the gender inequality amongst black people, and apartheid systematically stripped away the dignity of our mothers, our sisters, and our daughters. Despite generations of suppression, women formed a solid anchor in events that led up to 1994, and their names grace the books of our glorious struggle against inhuman injustice. Living legends like Umama Winnie Madikizela Mandela and the past heroines like Umama Charles Maxeke, Ruth First, Lillian Ngoyi, and Helen Josephs are among the giants in our collective history who not only championed the cause for freedom, but also dedicated their lives and efforts to ensure that women take their rightful place as equals in society. The NFP pays tributes today to all the women in our history who have contributed to the democracy and its benefit which we enjoy today. Yet, Speaker, we have a long way to go to the full emancipation of women in our society. Our women have claimed their right to equality and have achieved much. One such example is the NFP, which proudly led by President Mrs. Honorable Vizet Kamagwaza Msibi. She is proof of what women are capable of and has, through her efforts, achieved much to improve The lives of many South Africans living in poverty, and rural women in particular, will always salute you, Njinji Kayengwayo. There are many other women like our leader who are not only rising to the challenges they face in our society, where women still are not yet fully emancipated, but who are setting benchmarks and shattering the so-called class ceiling in boardrooms across the country. In addition, our legislation is progressive on paper. Women have full equality, which is highly commendable. Despite these and other success stories, there is much more that needs to be done. We should not procrastinate in our quest to ensure full emancipation of our women, in particular the financial or economic emancipation. I thank you.
The Honorable Macheke.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members. South African women face much more grueling challenges of eradicating institutionalized gender inequality, despite its removal from the statute books, in spite of the grand policies and plans developed by the Department of Women. South Africa must go 63 years back, evaluate progress made against the 8 aims of Women's Charter adopted on the 17th April 1954, which laid the groundwork for later visions of freedoms, non-racialism, equality, and human dignity. In paying tribute and to be true to the many women coming from all population groups, representing 230,000 women, we must do everything that has to be done, and we do it correctly. Whilst we concede that the Constitution, the National Development Plan, the multitude of policies and programs designed and submitted to this House, however, it is a grave concern that many women are still oblivious of the department's existence, let alone its programs, especially in the rural areas and informal settlements. The Department of Women must reposition itself so that it has a better impact on the daily lives of people. South Africa must revisit again the 1954 Women's Charter so that it can help to guide the work that still has to be done to bring the women of South Africa to a better socio-economic and political pedestal. A Women Development Charter must be clear, and its salient features must integrate young women and children. Empowering and educating of women is a critical driver of social economic development for the country. We must remember that when women do not earn to their potential, development suffers, and that hamstrings the GDP, which in turn hinders social development. When women do not reach their full economic potential, the economics of their countries suffer. The department must give practical priority to the development of many young female entrepreneurs. Through tailor-made education, access to finance and markets, young women entrepreneurs must be helped with board advisors or business industry mentors so they can participate in the business. Chairperson, women must enjoy their rights on all levels, including on those posed by culture, religion, and tradition, as well as processes of globalization and economic change. A right gained is not a right maintained unless there is constant monitoring rights. There is a need to strengthen women's access to both formal and informal justice system and ensure that these are responsive to advancing all women's equal rights, opportunity, and participation. Finally, and if our economy has to grow, the promotion of women's economic rights must serve as a cornerstone. I thank you.
The Honorable Mulder.
Speaker, the song, "Now You Have Touched the Women, You Have Struck a Rock," will always be part of the ANC's Women's March to the Union Buildings in 1956. When they arrived at the union buildings, the Prime Minister was not willing to meet them. But so there had been more women marches to the union buildings. In 1915, 6,000 Afrikaner women delivered a petition for the release of General Christian de Wet, one of the heroes of the Anglo-Boer or South African War. The then Prime Minister General Jan Smuts was not willing to meet them. Again in 1940, 10,000 Afrikaner women also marched to the Union Building for peace. They were also ignored by the government. Speaker, it is sad that we still debate the issue of the empowerment of women in the year 2017. This issue should have been solved long ago. My wife is a teacher, and she summarizes these issues with a quote in a classroom wall that says, anything women do today, they must do twice as well as men to be thought half as good. Luckily, this is not difficult. Ek wil vandag ook hulde bring aan Afrikaner vroue, aan hulle innerlike krag en sterkte en hulle rol in die geskiedenis. Te maklik word hulle deur sommige geskiedkuiwers as slegs onderdanig en swak voorgestel. So in any struggle, women and children are usually the ones suffering the most. You know, by the end of the Anglo-Boer War, or the South African War in 1902, there were 160,000 Afrikaner women and children and 130,000 black people in British concentration camps. In total, 32,000 of these people, Afrikaner people, and approximately 20,000 black people died in those British concentration camps. That is 10 times more Afrikaner women and children than the number of men that had died on the battlefield. So my grandmother was one of those in the British camps, and she always referred to it as the English War because she said the British had caused the war as part of British colonialism. Toe die voortrekkermans in 1843 besluit om nie meer weerstand te bied teen Britse kolonialisme in Natal nie, het die vroue onder leiding van Susanna Smit ontplof en gesê hulle sal liewer kaalvoet oor die Drakensberge loop as om weer hulle vryheid prys te gee en weer onder Britse bewind te wees. Interessant, die verengelse Kaapenaar, Henry Kloete, wat namens die Britse regering met die voortrekkers onderhandel het, was geskok dat hierdie Afrikaanse vroue soveel vryheid toegelaat word. Hy skryf in sy dagboek, "These women are a disgrace to their husbands." Vandag is ons trots op hulle dapperheid. Mevrou, watter standbeeld is die sentrale beeld by die Voortrekmonument? Wat het die argitek gekies om daar te plaas? Die argitek het besluit om 'n vrou die sentrale figuur te maak oor die belangrike rol wat hulle in die geskiedenis gespeel het, en ek nooi hom saam uit te kom dat ek gaan wys hoe lyk dit daar. En dit was in die 1930s wat dit opgerig is, 'n vrou met haar 2 kinders. Speaker, Women's Day should celebrate and commemorate the role and struggle not only of ANC women, but of all women in South Africa's history. I thank you.
The Honorable Murutua.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, honorable ministers and honorable deputy ministers, good day to the public at home. I dedicate this debate in remembrance of 1956 heroes who without fear marched to the Union Building to demand abolishment of past laws, a march of great magnitude that was organized by the then Federation of South African Women. Honorable members, I am sure you still remember that the South African Parliament hosted the International Women's Conference. We saw it befitting to host the conference of this magnitude during the August month, which is a Women's Month. Hosting that conference was of critical importance because a number of key issues directly affecting women were identified as needing urgent intervention by various countries, South Africa included. The themes of that conference were centered around the theme of 61st session of the CSW held at the United Nations headquarters in New York from 13th to the 17th March 2017, which is Women in the Changing World of Work. The following are some of the issues that emanated from our debates and engagement during the conference. Women in South Africa and the rest of the African continent are still living in abject poverty. The release of poverty trends in South Africa reports
by Statistics South Africa bears testimony to this fact. Women and girls are still burdened by unpaid care work, which is exploitative and undervalued. The dehumanizing impact of violence against women and its contribution to women economic disempowerment was put forward by the delegates, including violence in the workplace. It is estimated that 15% of all sexual offenses take place at the workplace. The economical vulnerability of women makes women to be more dependent on men and unable to live violent and abusive relationships. The lack of sensitivity by police officials was also put forward as an issue that needs urgent attention. A need was identified to address current income inequalities and ensure equitable workplaces and environment. Currently, it is reported that women earn 23% less than men. There is a need to address this and ensure equal pay for equal work. The delegates emphasized the urgent need to transform workplaces and ensure that places of work are gender sensitive. It was also emphasized that all women in all workplaces should have access and benefit from these transformed workplaces. This includes domestic workers employed in our homes. The delegates agreed that all parliaments need to monitor the implementation of various international and regional instruments that are critical for the promotion of gender equality. The UN 2030 Agenda of Sustainable Development was specifically mentioned as amongst the critical instruments that are in place to ensure gender equality by 2030. Women were encouraged to embrace innovation and technology as these are key to unlocking women's economic potential. Technologically empowered and computer literate women and girls are able to navigate their way on the internet. And that is critical to growing their empowerment and emancipation. An emphasis was made with regards to development of right policies and measures to cater for the rapidly changing world of work, to ensure that women economically empowered. For example, by investing in the care economy. It was noted that most SADC countries have enacted good legal frameworks for women's equality and empowerment, but the problem is related to implementation. It was agreed that all parliaments must therefore strengthen the oversight and accountability mechanisms. A critical issue that emerged over the course of the conference is the issue of allocation of budgets. It was agreed that the fiscal budget allocation should strike a balance and take into consideration the needs of both men and women. It was also emphasized that fiscal allocation and public expenditure should consider investing in programs and projects that are aimed towards women's economic empowerment and addressing violence against women. Parliamentary women's caucuses are an important platform for women parliamentarians to come together across the political divide and create a space to discuss that affect all women regardless of party affiliation. It was agreed that men have a responsibility and role to play in ensuring an equal society. The adoption and implementation of programs like UN He for She are aimed at advocating men as champions for gender equality. A strong emphasis was made that countries need to put more focus on the plight of women in vulnerable sectors of employment, such as in the informal economy, farm workers, domestic workers, and sex workers. As a result, allow me to dwell more on the plight of women in vulnerable and marginalized sectors of employment. There are a number of women who work in vulnerable sectors of the economy, and they include domestic workers, farm workers, and sex workers. According to Commission for Employment Equity, women are mostly represented in these vulnerable sectors of economy, which are specific gender stereotyped roles with low salaries and job insecurities. The majority of these women are not aware of their rights, and as such, exploitation and gross violation of rights is rife within the sector. We need to empower these women with a view to preventing their exploitation. We as parliamentarians need to conduct effective oversight over the Department of Labor to ensure that it improves the monitoring within this sector. In conclusion, We usually talk about transformation and workplaces to ensure that women are able to thrive and stay longer in the world of work, but most of the time, we tend to forget about women in these vulnerable sectors. The time is now to ensure that women in these vulnerable sectors of our economy are also empowered and able to enjoy the benefits of democracy. We need to remember that we are on the brink of the fourth industrial revolution, and with it comes advancement in technology. So it is up to us to ensure that women at these levels are not made more vulnerable and be displaced as technology takes over. Our country has enacted laws to ensure fair labor practices for all employees, including stipulated minimum wages for domestic workers. Despite the presence of such laws, some domestic workers are still subjected to sexual harassment and other forms of unsafe working conditions in their places of work, which are our homes. We as parliamentarians have passed these laws, and we need to ensure that they are implemented. We must fight for the rights of all women. Women in all sectors of the society were part of that very important march. Domestic workers and street vendors were there in their numbers. We must leave no women behind on our quest to gender-sensitive workplaces. Women in vulnerable sectors also need to enjoy the benefits of the changing world of the economy. Thank you. Malbongwe.
The Honorable Carter.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, paraphrasing Dr. Jackson Katz, an American author and filmmaker, and I quote, "We talk about how many women were raped last year, but not about how many men raped women. We talk about how many girls in a school district were harassed last year, but not about how many boys harassed girls. We talk about how many teenage girls got pregnant last year, rather than how many men and boys impregnated teenage girls." So you can see how the use of a passive voice has a political effect. It shifts the focus of men and onto girls and women. Even the term violence against women is problematic. It's a passive construction. There's no active agent in the sentence. It's a bad thing that happens to women, but when you look at the term violence against women, nobody is doing it to them. It just happens. Men aren't even part of it. As Dr. Katz points out, there can be little doubt that much work still remains to be done if we are to ensure the full emancipation, the liberation of women in our society. Nonetheless, there is much to celebrate. I look back at my own mother, one of the first lithographic printers, operators in South Africa. I grew up in a box underneath her workstation, doing what was then considered as being a man's job, but earning a woman's salary, having to go home to attend to what was then considered to be the wife's responsibilities in the household. There can be no doubt that the advent of our constitutional democracy, underpinned by our Bill of Rights, was a watershed moment in the process of progressive realization, the emancipation of women in South Africa. Much has changed in South Africa since the advent of constitutional order underpinned by our Bill of Rights. Whilst much has changed, given our constitutional order, much work is still required. It calls upon government to fulfill the Bill of Rights and thus to respect, protect, promote and fulfill the emancipation of women. Now, does government have a will to ensure the liberation of a girl, child and woman? Is government doing enough? And what about our society? Are we as society playing our role? On 27 October 1917, 100 years ago, a gentle giant, Oliver Tambo, was born. He was raised by his mother to be sensitive at heart and with a fighting spirit to protect and nurture the rights and dignity of women. How are we raising the boy child? Are we inculcating the values of human dignity and equality? In wanting to ensure the emancipation of women, we need to also ensure the emancipation of a boy child and our men, to emancipate them, as Bob Marley said, from their own mental slavery. Thank you.
The Honourable Dudley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In South Africa, huge efforts are made and initiatives undertaken both by government and civil society to empower women, to put a stop to violence against women and co-opt men as allies in achieving these social imperatives. Unless, however, these efforts are coordinated and integrated, we will continue taking one step forward and two steps back. The greatest social interventions in the world to educate and empower women, men and children amount to very little, while we fail to remove the sexually exploitative messages of pornography from our media platforms. Government policy on the distribution of pornography is found in the Films and Publications Amendment Bill, which is now before the Portfolio Committee on Communications. Now, the policy position that children must be protected from exposure to pornography is strongly supported by the ACDP. However, we cannot support the notion that adults should view what they want when society continues to suffer the consequences of pornography's exploitative message. Most recently, the sexual assault and rape of pupils by staff and other adults in our schools. Now, research makes it clear that sexually exploitative and devaluing messages result in sexual exploitation, irrespective of the age of the viewer. Sexual crime is also as much about a need to sexually humiliate and degrade the victim as it is about control and sexual gratification, and so too is pornography. Now, the ACDP rejects the policy proposal to only disallow the distribution of violent pornography, which would result in the mainstreaming of non-violent, sexually explicit material that is degrading of human beings and disrespecting of human dignity, neither being in the interest of justice nor in the public interest, and the protection of human dignity being the cornerstone of our democracy. With an unlimited supply of pornography on the internet, harms have taken the world by storm. Sexual addictions and disorders, damaged and broken relationships, sexting, child-on-child sexual abuse, revenge porn, increased rape on college campuses, and in military, rampant sexual objectification of women, in popular culture, anxiety and depression, and the list goes on. Now, in the USA, the land of Hugh Hefner, founder of Playboy magazine, who died last month, the reality of the harms of pornography is causing an ever-growing number of state legislatures to declare pornography to be a public health crisis. In a recent article in the Washington Examiner, the American author asked, how can our society accept, let alone applaud Hefner and the messages about the value of women he unleashed, when we are simultaneously struggling with campus sexual assault, military sexual assault, and the culture of sexual harassment in Silicon Valley, not to mention our schools. What Hefner tried to sell as emancipating, empowering history and research has shown to be utterly enslaving and profoundly disempowering. Now, like the American author, we, and I especially include the Communications Portfolio Committee members here, have to ask, why would we support the production and distribution of material that exploits women through its message and promotes the sexual exploitation of women? How can we, knowing the exposure to material that promotes sexual exploitation, facilitates sexual violence on women and girls, support the distribution of such material in our society without conducting a credible and thorough investigation into the effects of pornography in South Africa? And I thank you for listening. Thank you.
The Honourable Ruoste.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The crisis of the economy is reflecting on our plates, and women are using their bodies to buffer this crisis. These are the words of Julie Smith, a senior researcher at PAXA, an NGO that does research on the price of food and food inflation. One of the women she recently interviewed had the following to say: if I also eat the good things in the house, then there will not be enough for my children. I know my kids will not have enough, so I sacrifice my body for my kids to be as healthy as possible. And even then, I still can't get my kids through the end of the month, but I really try. I really do think that the mother's love for her children has no bounds, and it should come as no surprise that poor women are eating less so that their children can eat more. My daughter, Cara, has actually just turned 1, and I cannot think of anything worse in this life than having to see her go hungry, or crying because she's struggling in school or because she is feeling sick, while I know the reason for that is because I cannot give her the food that her body needs. The reality is that every day 4 mothers have to sit at the deathbed of their child due to malnutrition. In actual fact, the 30 billion that we are using to bail out SAA could have fed all 61,304 children under the age of 5 who have been admitted to hospital due to severe acute malnutrition over the last 4 years. This money would have been enough to provide them with basic, nutritious meals until their 18th birthday. You can have the best constitution in the world, you can have lovely legislation, you can have marches and you can have debates. But if women and children are going hungry, they are not empowered and they are not free. Over the weekend, the DA convened to consider a new set of policies that will grow the economy and create jobs, but that will also address the immediate needs of the millions of South Africans, the majority in actual fact, that are living on less than 1,000 rand a month. It is estimated that 77% of children under the age of 2 do not receive a basic nutritious diet. And the first 1,000 days is incredibly important because if children don't eat properly in that period, the developmental damage is permanent. 27% of South African children under the age of 5 is stunted. The DA knows that no mother wants this for her child. We recognize the incredible sacrifices that women are making and the impossible choices they are faced with. Therefore, the DA will aim to align the child grant to an objective measure of what it actually costs to feed a child. At present, it will mean doubling the child grant. It is not a lot, but it will go a long way in alleviating some of the stress that women have to face on a daily basis. So the next time the Honourable President of the Women's League sleeps in a hotel for 11,000 rand a night, she might spare a thought for the mother whose child could have lived another 1.5 years if she had that money to buy food.
The Honourable Make.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. South Africa achieved democracy in 1994. Central to this democracy was a commitment to gender equality and the empowerment of women. Gender equality is a founding principle and core right of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, 1996. And its founding principles elevate human rights, equality, and freedom for everyone in South Africa. However, violence against women and children did not disappear with the introduction of the Constitution and all the rights which are enshrined in the Bill of Rights. We come from a past where violence was a norm, including the previous state, which was violent and justified violence. Within this context, women and children suffered violence and abuse in various forms, physically, sexually, emotionally, psychologically, economically, etc. Children did not escape the same. With the dawn of democracy, the ANC-led government introduced measures that promoted an integrated approach in the strategies to eliminate the above scourge. The National Crime Prevention Strategy of 1996 inculcated a victim-centered approach in the criminal justice system. The spin-off has been a plethora of legislation, either new or amended, that affirms victims' rights and ranges from firearm control to domestic violence legislation. Protocol, norms, and standards have been developed. For example, the Uniform Protocol for Services for Victims of Crime, 2005, the Patients' Rights Charter, and the NPA Customer Service Charter. Institutional mechanisms such as the Specialized Sexual Offences Courts, Tutuzela Care Centers, Family, Child and Sexual Offences Units, Domestic Violence Courts, Correctional Supervision Boards and others were established in order to create space and provide institutional arrangements for recourse and to promote women's human rights. While it is the primary responsibility of government to provide strong leadership and a coordinated and integrated approach to tackling this scourge, reducing violence against women and children is a shared responsibility across the South African society as a whole and cannot be achieved by government alone. Structural barriers in the economic, political, social, and environmental levels reinforce racial and gender inequalities. Women continue to be marginalized and discriminated against in terms of economic opportunities, the labor market, as well as access to land, credit, and finance, which makes them prone to violence and abuse. The ANC government appreciated the importance of understanding the causes of domestic violence, as some of the perpetrators are themselves victims of domestic violence, which makes it important to include counseling in order to change the mindset of the perpetrators and emphasize the resocialization and reorientation of the perpetrators of violence against women and children to facilitate their understanding that women are their equals and part of the society, in promoting a non-racial and non-sexist democratic society and equal society. The approach to this scourge has been multi-pronged in order to ensure that we address even the causes of gender-based violence. Honorable Speaker, this House is aware that our intervention in policing our people have not been in vain. We are making slow but steady progress in the fight against abuse of women and children. We have to acknowledge that 100%, which is 1,144 police stations, render a victim-friendly service for victims and survivors of rape, sexual offenses, domestic violence, and abuse, in order for them to render a victim-friendly service. The SABs must comply with the following conditions. 1, the police station must have had at least 50% of their operational members completed one or more of the following training courses: Victim Empowerment Learning Program, Domestic Violence Learning Program, Vulnerable Children Learning Program, and First Responders to Sexual Offenses Learning Program. Number 2, the police station must have a victim-friendly room where the woman or child can receive support and counseling survivor of violence that allows for privacy during statement taking in cases of gender-based or intimate violence. The third, that a standing order has been issued to direct the management of victim services at the police station, including referral to other service provider, management of the victim-friendly room, and/or the alternate arrangement referred to above, and where applicable, management of volunteers. The Ministry of Police has also shown its commitment to deal with violence against women and children by initiating a summit on gender-based violence. We also know that the ministry has developed a 6-point plan to deal with gender-based violence. This includes all victims should be treated with respect, dignity, and interviewed by trained police officers in victim-sensitive manner. Victims should be assisted at the victim-friendly room or an alternative room where the statement will be taken in private at the police station or other location providing victim support services. Victims will be referred or taken for medical examination by the healthcare professional to obtain medical evidence and complete a medical report. Number 4, the investigation should be conducted by the Family Violence, Child Protection and Sexual Offences Investigation Unit or a detective with relevant training. The families of victims of sexual offenses and infanticide should be referred to the victim support service that are available within the precinct for legal, medical, social, and psychological help. And lastly, victims should be proactively provided with feedback on the progress of their cases on a continual basis. In conclusion, the government and the Department of Police in particular has identified and classified violence against women and children as a priority crime. This has been so all along in the police service. This is proved by the fact that every police station is obliged by law to have this. As I said earlier on, the ministry has organized a summit for gender violence. Conviction of perpetrators is very low, and that might be because of poor training. The approach by the law enforcement structures, including the Portfolio Committee on Police, has been to work together and forget about grandstanding as this sector deals with the safety and lives of our citizens. These types of crimes stem from societal problems. The police can only be reactive as these problems happen within people's houses away from the public. Solving these crimes, therefore, need a multifaceted approach involving different departments, non-governmental structures, faith-based organizations, and all civil structures in our communities. I thank you.
The Honorable Njaisa.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. We salute the women of 1956 who marched to Pretoria, who paved the way for the women. The very essence and pretext of gender rights find expression in our collective agency to tailor the rights of women against the past prejudice. The scourge of women abuse should be substituted with progressive policies that should empower them to become industry players and economic participants. They should be treated as equals as men because they are always equal to the task. The empowerment of women has the direct contribution to the fiscals and the economy at large. We are reminded of the sacrifice of Marian Betha, who helped to shape the discourse on women's struggle. The empowerment of women entails educating women and affording them leadership roles precisely because they have the capacity to lead and manage. They must be free to engage in businesses. It follows that a country that does not care about the struggle of women is bound to be relegated into dustbin of the country, rather of history. In this regard, the Department of Small Businesses and Enterprises should play a major role in promoting small and medium enterprises owned by women. The Department of Women in Presidency, which is legislated to protect, promote and advance the rights of women, should be occupied with the real agenda of advancing women emancipation. We also need, Honorable Speaker, a radical transformation of the mind so as to see how important it is to empower and emancipate women in this country. We have already seen the contribution that is being made by women in the sector of agriculture, forestry, and fisheries. It is important, therefore, that we work together to emancipate and empower the women of this country. Then we fight all the social ills that are affecting the women of the country. It is the cooperation that will make us to defeat this demon, so that all women will be emancipated and empowered, so that the country grows economically. I thank you.
The Honorable Mbinda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There is an English saying that goes something like, behind every great man there is a woman. Such could possibly be the case in the West and some other places. May I categorically say that within the ideology and values of the PAC, we do not subscribe to such. PAC maintains that besides every great man, there is a great woman. It is clear to the PAC slogan that one man, one vote, as articulated during the struggle days, was wrongly interpreted and applied by some parties. It did not and was never meant to sideline the woman. On the contrary, it finds its fullest expression as interpreted by the PAC in the realization that humanity is incomplete without women being able to be fully expressive of themselves and live life to their fullest potential. This year, PAC, Azania, and indeed the global African nation commemorates and celebrates the 90th birthday of one of the greatest women in this country. It is important to state clearly that as we celebrate the great mother of Azania, we do so not from an angle that suggests that the greatness was bestowed upon her by virtue of marriage, but by the fact that she was great in her own right and brought greatness to her marriage. We are talking about Umamu Zondeni, Veronica Sobukwe, Umangananu Tenjwayo, uDlakude uMgabadeli owamamela incindezelo wangayivumi into yokuba angashiya lo msebenzi awawushiyelwa ngutata uSobukwe uswalela ke umhlaba nanamhlanje. It is not an exaggeration to rank Mama Sobukwe amongst the likes of the great African women, old, such as Queen Makeda of Ethiopia, Queen Ahmose, Queen Zinga, the Kakade warrior, the queens of Kush. Umamu Sobukwe is a clear example that women do not need to beg anyone for emancipation and empowerment, nor do they need anyone to facilitate that process on their behalf. So we cannot be and shall not be the liberators of women. Women are their own liberators. Nkosi Mama Sobukwe, may you continue to inspire and motivate more women to realize their power to emancipate and empower themselves. Nkosi.
Honorable Tarabella Machesi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to dedicate this speech to our friend, our colleague, Tanya Baker. We'll always remember her for her good nature and hard work. May her soul rest in peace. Madam Speaker, women out there want privileges, they want prospects like all of us sitting here. They value their lives, they want education to escape poverty. They want job opportunities to earn a living and to support their families. They want to live in safety and stability. They want a prosperous future, not only for themselves, but for their children as well. Madam Speaker, I stand here ashamed of being a female parliamentarian in South Africa. I'm ashamed that a school system that is a tool to emancipate our learners is now a place where children can be raped by adults who are entrusted to keep them safe and to teach them. Recently, we heard of shocking happenings at Kuma Primary School in Gauteng, where a scholar security guard allegedly raped and sexually violated 87 learners. I'm ashamed that 16 learners at Buchutong High School in Northwest fell pregnant, allegedly as a result of sexual abuse by their teachers. I'm ashamed that sex for jobs and carpet interviews is still a daily reality for South African women. I'm ashamed that in the 21st century, cultural norms that violate the rights of women like ukutwala and virginity testing are still practiced. I'm ashamed that according to the latest Employment Equity Annual Report, males still occupy 78% of the position in top management. Corporate South Africa, to this day, still pays women in South Africa an average of 15% less for the same work as their male counterparts, despite the fact that women are the ones who are more likely to finish high school and obtain university degrees as compared to their male counterpart. As a female parliamentarian, I'm ashamed, but I'm also hopeful. As we sit in this August House, we have the ability and the responsibility to change the course on how women are seen in our society. Government needs to respond in a very deliberate and serious manner to this crisis that has shaken the education sector across the country. It is concerning that the Department of Basic Education has admitted that it does not collect data on how many school pregnancies occur as a result of sexual relationship because teachers and learners, especially given that 43,500 learners fell pregnant nationally over the last 3 years. More astoundingly is that DBE also does not know whether people return to school after giving birth. And this is a massive failure on the part of the department. We also have a problem where SACE doesn't update and keep proper records on sexual offenders. Schools are places where children receive opportunity to create better lives for themselves, as should not be spaces where learners are preyed upon. As a democratic alliance will not allow predators, teachers to get off scot-free, and those who are found guilty must be barred from teaching. Finally, statistics show that girls are academically doing better than boys in schools. Why is this not reflecting in the workplace? We, as a democratic alliance, demand equal opportunity and equal pay. Come 2019, the Democratic Alliance will start realizing the dream of a prosperous future and equality for all. A future where women are no longer oppressed and undervalued, but will be able to thrive in every part of society. Thank you.
The Honorable Bengu Kombe, she will speak from her desk.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Let me start by saying that African National Congress siyazwelana nabemindeni yabantwana abahlukunyeziwe ngokocansi esikoleni samabanga aphansi eGauteng. Sibonga amaphoyisa ngokubanjwa komsola, sengathi umthetho ungawenza umsebenzi wawo abhadle ejele ngalesi senzo esiwubulwane sokuhlukumeza abantwana abancane nabaningi kangaka. Honorable members, angeke ngikwazi ukuphendula laba abanye asebekhulumile ngoba khona abantu abavele baphuphe nje emini bangaze bagcine sebesenza nathi sibe nempondo. Honorable members, access to land for women has for a long time been a challenge for women. Although land can be acquired in a variety of ways, whether property inheritance, purchase and transfers from the government in land reform programs, women still face hurdles than men. South Africa's laws and policies governing rural women's land rights and access to lands are largely adequate. In terms of Section 7.2 of the Constitution, the state must respect, protect, and promote the rights in the Bill of Rights. Section 9.1 provides that everyone is equal before the law and everyone has a right to equal protection and benefit of the law. Section 25 of the Constitution protects existing property rights and also creates an imperative for land reform. As such, read together these provisions means that the government is obliged to ensure equal access to land ownership for rural women. Comprehensive Rural Development Program is a government policy on rural development. The main focus of the program is on agrarian transformation and land reform as pillars of rural development, alongside infrastructure provisions such as housing, energy, sanitation, schools, clinics, boreholes, and water reticulation system in rural areas. The National Development Plan views agriculture as critical to employment and food security. It is estimated that agriculture would potentially create 1 million jobs by 2030. The 2030 vision speaks of inclusivity and integration of rural areas. Women are key agents for achieving the transformational economic, environmental, and social changes required for sustainable development. Women play a central role in addressing rural development, including food security measures, but vital contribution to society goes largely unnoticed. Agriculture is a main alternative for rural women, and they comprise a largest percentage of the workforce in agricultural sector. But women do not have access and control over all land and productive resources. Women continue campaigns against marginalized and discrimination in terms of rural economic opportunities, rural labor markets, and access to land. Honorable members, through the ANC-led government, the NDP identified the key interventions for women in rural development, such as supporting them in setting up of agri-parks. Agri-parks will serve as an important mechanism to execute the NDP's proposed rural development strategy due to its potential for supporting a small-scale agricultural production and stimulating agro-processing in rural areas. Whilst continuing the struggle to ensure greater ownership means of production, the ANC-led government has to make sure that its aim is to reverse the legacy of colonialism and apartheid to ensure a just and equitable distribution of agricultural land to Africans and women in particular. During 2015-16, Department of Agriculture, Forests and Fisheries, collaborating with the provincial departments of agriculture, provided financial support towards agricultural drought relief, focusing on the provision of animal field drilling and equipment boreholes for smaller and subsistence producers. The empowerment of women in rural areas is central in addressing exploitation and equipping women with the necessary skills to develop the rural economy through local economic development programs that provide for sustainable communities. Empowering them is a key not only to the well-being of individuals, families, and rural communities, but also to overall economic productivity, given women's large presence in the agricultural workforce. Necessary skills in adoption of modern agricultural techniques that are tailored to local conditions and that use natural resources in a sustainable manner, with a view to achieving economic development without degrading the environment. Women have continued to play a role in food security measure programs. It is extremely important to recognize the role that rural women play and the contribution that they have made in networks and cooperatives. It is necessary to give them greater political and financial support in involving them in the training and conducting of development programs that enhance women's role in agricultural production. Progress has been made in the implementation of rural development and land reform
Honourable
programs.
Member, your time is now expired.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson.
Thank you. I now call upon the Honourable Minister of Women in the Presidency.
Thank you, Chairperson. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the members who contributed to this debate in a constructive way, because this is a debate which is a societal matter. The issue of women, it's not a matter about women only, it's about how society responds to challenges which are faced by women in our country, but also globally. I also need to say, as this Parliament, we cannot continue seeing the responsibility of the transformation and mainstreaming gender matters being a responsibility of government. As public representatives, they have a responsibility to contribute in changing lives of women. And linked to that, this is not a struggle about women. When you talk about violence against women, it's not about only women. We need partnership by men in our society. And I must also say, where we are today, I am happy that we're seeing more men's organizations, men taking a stand against violence in our society in support of women. Hence, the issue of not in my name, having many, many women coming on board becomes critical. It also talks to the respect and the realization of men that without men taking a stand, violence against women cannot end. The other issue we need to know is where we come from. It's a patriarchal society. The 23 years of democracy cannot change the many, many years of patriarchy. But also linked to that, cannot be changed by the systematic approach by apartheid government in continuing to make women minors. And that was instituted in our laws. So that has come a long way. As we are here today, the violence against women in our country, we know we come from a violent society. Apartheid was a very violent system on its own. Hence, we are facing the results of what come from that. So I believe that the various laws, the various things we are doing as government in the emancipation of women, and mainly gender mainstreaming, it's what will change South Africa. The attitudes of men, both men and women, has to change and bring respect and dignity. That also goes to making sure that the empowerment of women becomes a priority. Without women being able to articulate and participate in the economy and being able to contribute and take care of their own self-esteem, as a country, we cannot say we will be able to have, as per our constitution, a recognition of equality as defined by our constitution. The Bill of Rights, as we say it, it becomes a paper unless our behavior, our doings change, and we live the change and making sure we recognize that. What we do in our homes, as we address both girls and boys, how we nurture them informs future society. It informs how they behave at school. But if we tend to continue to see boys more important than girls, then patriarchy cannot stop. These are the issues which needs a collective, needs all of us to commit in changing that. How we socialize our children when they play at various levels and recognizing that their potentials in all areas without exception, saying this is for girls or for boys. We can't see a society which tends to advance the interest of women and ensuring that women are part of an equal society. Not only that, also addressing issues of racism in our country. These are all factors and social ills which we have to work together collectively in ensuring that South Africa becomes a better country. We are facing a challenge where school children are exposed to violence, especially girls, when it comes to sexual abuse. It needs all of us. Let's stop pointing fingers. Let's work together and finding mechanisms and solutions and making sure in the little communities, in our streets, we make sure that Ubuntu buyabuya, nenhlonipho comes back, and making sure that our kids are groomed adequately, and ensuring that every child is my child and embracing our children properly. If we do that, as South Africa, we will indeed have the ideal South Africa which we fought for. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. That concludes the debate. We now come to motions without notice. Does any member of the ANC wish to give a motion without notice? The ANC?
The African National Congress moves without notice that the House notes with sadness the passing on of the former Inspector General at the South African National Defence Force, Major General Mxolisi Phethani, on Tuesday, the 26th of September 2017, at the age of 59. Further notes that the former general, who also served in the ANC's military wing, Umkhonto Wesizwe, died of natural causes at military hospital in Pretoria. Recalls that General Phethani was one of many freedom fighters incarcerated on Robben Island under the apartheid government for his role in liberating the country. Remembers that he was born in Retreat, Cape Town in 1958, and his family was recollected to Gugulethu due to the forced removals policies of apartheid. Understands that the passion to liberate his fellow countrymen and women from the yoke of oppression saw him play various luminary roles in the ranks of the ANC as a political commissar in Botswana from 1983 to 1994. Acknowledges that after the country's first democratic elections, General Phethani occupied the highest echelons of commander within the South African National Defence Force. Remembers him as a committed comrade who cared for and represented the interests of all citizens, regardless of their color, their skin, and their creed, and conveys its condolences to his family and relatives. I thank you, Chair.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The DA?
Thank you, House Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House notes that in 2014, Stats SA found that a staggering 35% of bucket toilets in South Africa were located in the Nelson Mandela Bay municipality. Also notes that after just 1 year of the DA-led coalition government taking over the municipality, great progress has been made in eradicating the bucket toilet system. Further notes that the municipality is now only months away from having 0 bucket toilets within its borders. Acknowledges that the current administration is working non-stop to deliver better services and restore people's dignity. Congratulates the municipality on achieving this milestone in such a short space of time and wishes them well as they continue to deliver better services to all. I thank you.
If there are no objections, I put the motion.
Abstain object.
There's an objection. The motion is not agreed to. The EFF. Order, Honourable Member.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chair. I rise on behalf of the economic freedom fighters that the House note that the 16th of October marked the 78th anniversary of the passing of Charlotte Maxeke, a pioneer of black and female activism in this country, who dedicated much of her life to improving the lives of her people. She was one of the first black female graduates in the country who had the privilege of being taught by one of the greatest scholars of Pan-Africanism while on scholarship in the United States. This left a mark on her and was reflected in her activism when she returned to South Africa. In 1912, she attended the launch of the South African Native National Congress, which was later the ANC. She was a feminist who wrote on the suffering of black women, and 43 years before the Women's Pass March, helped organize the anti-pass movement in Bloemfontein. In 1918, she founded the forerunner to the ANC Women's League, while being a key player in the formation of the Industrial Commercial Workers Union. The achievements of Mama Charlotte Maxeke must never be forgotten, and is why we ask this Parliament to remember her. As the EFF, we will honor her legacy by fulfilling our generational mission of economic freedom in our lifetime for Africa and the oppressed world. You must be the example. Thank you.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The ANC. The ANC.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. The ANC moves without notice that the House knows the motivational story of the 36-year-old Limpopo doctor, Vuchiso Nechituma Tuni, whom after qualifying as the first black pediatric oncologist in South Africa last year, is determined to help children beat cancer. Further notes that Dr. Vuchilo works as a pediatric oncology unit on Pietermaritzburg Hospital in Polokwane, which specializes in childhood cancer treatment. I understand that patients suffering from various types of cancer are referred to the unit from health facilities across Limpopo. Recalls that the young medical doctor discovered her love for the profession while visiting her cousin at a medical campus some years back. Further recalls that after grade 12 in 1999, she pursued her medical degree at Sefako Mahato Health Science University, formerly Medunza. Remembers that even though life was difficult after her father, who was the breadwinner, died leaving her mother to raise 4 children, she persevered until she achieved her dream of becoming a doctor. Further remembers that while doing routine hospital visits as a student, she discovered she loves working with children, which influenced her decision to specialize in the field. Believes that Dr. Vushulo's stories will serve to motivate the youth to follow her lead. Congratulate Dr. Vushilo on her wonderful journey to become the first black pediatric oncologist. We so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The IFP.
Thank you, Chairperson. On behalf of the Inkatha Freedom Party, I hereby move without notice that this House, 1, notes that today, the 18th, and tomorrow, the 19th of October, marks the celebration of Deepavali or Diwali, also known as the Festival of Lights. 2, further notes that this celebration is meant to promote and cherish peace, harmony, and the universal triumph of light over darkness. Acknowledges that it is an auspicious occasion celebrated with great zeal throughout the period. 4, wishes all Hindu families throughout South Africa and the world celebrating this festival a happy one filled with light and goodwill. And finally, encourages all South Africans to follow the example set by the festival of Deepavali in remembering and showing kindness so that we may create greater joy, happiness, peace and social cohesion in our land, and also remembering that we are a stronger nation if we stand united than if we stand apart. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The NFP.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. I move on behalf of the NFP that this House notes that yesterday, the 17th of October, was International Day for the Eradication of Poverty, which was declared as such by the General Assembly of the United Nations in 1992. Also note that the purpose of the International Day for Eradication of Poverty is to recognize the courage of families living in poverty throughout the world, emphasize the importance of reaching out to the poorest of the poor, and building alliances with citizens from all backgrounds to end poverty. Further note that despite consistent government intervention since 1994, the current statistics indicate that poverty in South Africa is at more than 55.5% of the total population, and an estimated 13.8 million people are living in extreme poverty, which is below the food poverty line. And finally notes that poverty in South Africa affects the most vulnerable of our people, which are children younger than 17 years, females, blacks, Africans, and people living in rural areas. We call upon this House to encourage government, business, and people of South Africa to unite and intensify our fight against poverty. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The ANC.
Thank you, Chairperson. The African National Congress moves without the notes that on the 9th of October 2017 marks the 50th anniversary of the CIA-ordered assassination of Che Guevara, an artist of revolutionary warfare. Recalls that the half-century ago, CIA-trained troops sent shock waves around the world when they executed the Cold War revolutionary icon in 1967. Acknowledges that executing Che, his adversaries were trying to silence him and stall the struggles of the oppressed masses and the working class. Further acknowledges that the opposite happened as Che became the symbol of the resistance to oppression. Believes that his influence will still continue to inspire political activists decades after his death. Finds befitting the ceremonies held in Cuba and in Bolivia this month to honor and remember the contribution made by Ernesto Che Guevara in the struggle against imperialism and colonialism, and calls upon South Africans to join Cuba, Bolivia, people of the world in remembering Che. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion.
We object historical inaccuracy.
There's an objection. The motion is not agreed to. The UDM.
Excuse me. Thank you, House Chair. I move without notice on behalf of the United Democratic Movement that the House notes that on Friday, the 13th of October 2017, Dr. Sibongile Mutwa was unanimously appointed in a university council sitting as the Vice Chancellor of the Nelson Mandela University. Further notes that Dr. Sibongile Mutwa is the first woman, and in particular African woman, to occupy this position at NMMU. Commends her for this achievement, especially when considering that the fact that women are underrepresented in such positions across the country. Acknowledges that Dr. Mtwa's professional and academic career places her among those who can be referred to as loyal servants of the South African nation. Further acknowledges that there are many challenges facing higher education at the moment, and NMNU as a university in particular, but that Dr. Mtwa is equal to the task. Congratulates Dr. Mtwa on appointment as Vice Chancellor of NMMU and wishes her strength and courage in leading the university into an era of innovation and change. I so move. Thank you.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The Freedom Front Plus. The DA.
Thank you, House Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House knows that Hamilton Natke Square, on one of the City of Cape Town's community residential unit project in Langa, has been recognized by the Cape Institute for Architecture. Also knows that the square was recognized for its architectural, spatial, and community-enhancing achievements, being awarded the 2017 Cape Institute for Architecture Award. Further notes that this affirms the city's commitment to providing well-located housing opportunities and helping to ensure safer communities through urban design while creating jobs. Acknowledges that this project offers housing opportunities to 463 families. Also acknowledges that the project cost close to 170 million and consists of 463 two-bedroomed units of 40 square meters each across 3, 4, and 5-story buildings. Further acknowledges that these rental housing opportunities are aimed at those people residing in the worst hostel conditions in the city, following the development of a priority model for all hostels in Cape Town. Congratulates the City of Cape Town on this remarkable achievement. I thank you.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The EFF.
Thanks, House Chair. 1 million, one vote, one province. Young people are sending a strong message. They are part of the future, not the past. I rise on behalf of the EFF that the House note the recent victories of the EFF Student Command at the University of Limpopo, Valley University of Technology, University of Venda, China University of Technology. All of these are the repeat victories. This along with the other institution of the higher learning where the SRC is EFF Student Command led, as well as the victories at other institutions which have EFF Student Command members, shows the continued growth and appeal of the message of economic freedom in our lifetime. At campuses throughout South Africa, this message has found expression in the demand for free, quality, decolonized socialist education, and along with the clean governance and ability to address the day-to-day challenges facing the students, is why the EFF Student Command is able to retain the SRCs and is also able to continue growing in support at the institution of the higher learning where it has not yet won. Despite being only 2 years old, the EFF Student Command has become the most formidable student organization in the country and the only one truly dedicated to achieving free, quality, decolonized socialist education. The EFF Student Command will continue to grow, and as a mother body, we are proud of its achievement. I hereby call on the House to congratulate the EFF Student Command on its continued victory and growth.
Honourable Member, your time has expired. If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The ANC.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. The ANC moves without notice that the House knows that on the 16th October 2017, matriculants began their end-year examinations, believes that with all the extra additional support provided by the Department of Basic Education, teachers, non-governmental organizations, over the weekends, during holidays, these learners are well prepared for the final examination. Trust that they will perform better and are going to be so proudly achieve their matrics. We wish them all the best of luck. So we so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. Cope. The ACDP. The ANC. ACDP.
The ACDP moves that applications for financial aid in 2018 through the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, NSFAS, which opened for learners who wish to study at a public higher education institution or a technical vocational education and training college on the 1st of August 2017, be noted. The ACDP appeals to students to prioritize their applications for financial aid as the 30th of November deadline for NSFAS applications fast approaches. Grade 12 learners are advised not to wait until their exams, but to apply as soon as possible. Exam results are not needed to apply. NSFAS funded students going on to the next academic level in 2018 need not reapply for funding. However, students who are currently enrolled and were not funded in 2017 but qualify for NSFAS funding should apply urgently. Thank you.
Honourable Member, I've just been informed by the table that that motion was not circulated to political parties. It can't be put to the House then. I proceed to the ANC.
Thank you, Chairperson. The African National Congress moves without notice that the House notes with disappointment the sexual assaults of more than 80 pupils at AB Kuma Primary School in Soweto by the Scholar Patroller earlier this month. Believes that the 56-year-old suspect who stands accused of the crime was appointed a year ago as a recommendation by the Greater Orlando Community Policing Forum. Understand that he was arrested on October 9 and appeared at the Pretoria Magistrate Court on October 11. Acknowledges the removal of the principal and the senior management of the school by the Provincial Department of Education with immediate effect following the scandal, and commends the Provincial Education Department on prioritizing this matter, as well as a stakeholder who played a role in supporting the affected pupils, especially the Teddy Bear Clinic and the psychosocial support services. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The AIC.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I hereby move on behalf of African Independent Congress.
Honorable member, can you just move correctly into the mic, please, so that we can hear you?
I can't get, Honorable Chairperson.
We can't hear you. Can you just speak into the mic, please?
Okay. Keep quiet, man. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. On behalf of AIC, I hereby move without notice that the Department of Agriculture, Forest and Fisheries posture in calibrating the struggle against women's subjugation has been remarkably impactful in the empowerment of women. Acknowledges DAB's role during the 18th annual DAB's Provincial Female Entrepreneurial Awards, which took place at Hora Farmer Training Center in Mahikeng. Also congratulate the overall winner, Miss Rose Rahware of Similane Poetry, who took home 2 million worth of cash and other prizes. Also recognize the work of Miss Violet Kabuza, who supervises a business that employs approximately 17 people. Further draws inspiration from DAB's steadfastness in writing the course on the script of women empowerment. I so move. Thank you.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. Agang, the ANC.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. The African National Congress moves without notice that the House knows that Bafana have kept their slim chance of qualifying for the 2018 Soccer World Cup alive by beating Burkina Faso 3-1 in a Group D Africa qualifier at FNB Stadium on Saturday, the 7th of October. Understand that Bafana is now on 4 points in Group D, 1 point behind Burkina Faso, who remain the third in the group. Remembers that the 3 first half goals by Bafana was exactly what the team needed to ease the pressure in the second half. We further congratulate Bafana on this important victory and wish them well in their back-to-back matches against Senegal in November 27th, and we so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The APC.
Chairperson.
Yes, Honourable Member, why are you
I'm
rising?
not objecting to the motion. She just forgot something. It is EFF that brought the crowd to that stadium.
Oh, thank you for the information. The PAC. The DA.
Thank you, Mr. House Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House notes that the International Congress and Convention Association has ranked Cape Town as the #1 city in Africa for business tourism. Also notes that the city now ranks in the top 40 destinations for business tourism in the world. Also acknowledges that during the last financial year, the Western Cape secured 33 new bids with an estimated economic impact of 424 million rand. Also acknowledges that over the past 6 years, the estimated income from all of these conferences held exceeded more than 1.5 billion rand for the province. Further acknowledges the important role that business tourism events can play in stimulating economic growth and creating jobs for South Africans. And finally, that we congratulate the City of Cape Town for being named the go-to city for business tourism in Africa. Thank you.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The ANC.
Thank you, Chairperson. The African National Congress moves without notice that the House notes that 2017 marks the centenary of the Russian Revolution, and an event that led to the creation of the Soviet Union. remembers that 100 years ago, on a particular Wednesday in February, a food shortages in Russia triggered riots on the streets of the capital, Petrograd, and kicked off the Russian Revolution, a chain of events that would change the course of the world history. Recalls that workers, soldiers, peasants, who forms the vast majority of ordinary people, under the banner of the Bolsheviks, shook off the centuries-old monarch, and in October they seized the power. Further recalls that the Russian Revolution changed the course of the history as the monarch was replaced by the communist government, the world's first and the world's first. Understand that on this 100 years anniversary, the Soviet Union's war victims are remembered as much as its achievements. Believes that some cultural events and conferences are planned towards the end of the year as part of celebrating the century, and congratulates Russia on reaching the 100-year milestone. Amandla.
If there are no objections, I put the motion.
I object.
There's an objection. The motion is not agreed to. That concludes motions without notice. The next item, honourable members, on the order paper is member statements. Does any member of the ANC wish to make a statement?
Thank you, House Chair. The ANC welcomes and congratulates the Department of Health for the unveiling on the 17th September 2017 of the state-of-the-art new wing of the Cecilia Makiwane Hospital in Danzane, East London. This is a milestone towards the implementation of the National Health Insurance that will result in a provision of quality health care, particularly to poor communities. This world-class tertiary hospital is an investment to realize the National Development Plan vision and United Nations SDG for universal health coverage. This 526-bedded hospital is supported by an integrated system that will optimize delivery health care. It applies technological innovations to reduce patients' waiting times, improve diagnosis, and enables a quicker health interventions to patients. This $1 billion investment infrastructure will support local economic development in the townships as will revitalize public health infrastructure. We are also expanding opportunities for local communities to improve their lives through job creation and local entrepreneurs development. I thank you.
The DA.
Thank you, House Chairperson. The Democratic Alliance condemns the suggestion made by the illegitimate ANC chairman in KwaZulu-Natal that BE legislation should be amended to exclude Indian and coloured people from competing for state tenders over 50 million rand. This suggestion is not only illegal, but unconstitutional, and it violates the spirit and letter of BE legislation. The MEC must be called out for the person he is, a crude and racist man looking for political relevance. These suggestions by the illegitimate chairman violate Section 1B of the amended Act, which states in the generic term that African people, Indian people, and coloured people are considered to be black. His plans are therefore nothing more than an attempt to undermine legislation and to sow racial discord in KZN. Why does the ANC hate Indian and coloured people so much? Why does the ANC want to use Indian and coloured people as pawns in their political conference? What have ANC and coloured people ever done to you to be excluded from tenders? Indian and coloured people must stop donating money to the ANC and start to recognize until they are recognized for the contribution they make to this country. The DA is the only party that represents all South Africans, black, white, coloured and Indian. And in 2019, they have an opportunity to remove the ANC and to stop these continued racial attacks against them.
The EFF.
Thank you, House Chair. Abraham Isau Hospital in Calvinia, Northern Cape Province is dysfunctional and failing to serve the 35,000 catchment in the area. When the hospital was designed,
Order,
it was intended
members.
to offer 24-hour service and an operating theatre for emergencies. Currently, the hospital cannot do
Order, honourable
both
members.
properly. In 2016, the hospital had 6 doctors. Currently, it only has 2, with the vacant posts still not having been advertised. There are no second doctors on call because it is humanly impossible. The operating theatre cannot operate after hours, while all critical services in the maternity department are not functional, forcing poor pregnant patients to travel more than 413 kilometers to Uppington. Because of the shortage of doctors, visits are no longer made to neighboring clinics, placing an even greater burden on the hospital. This is the reality of healthcare for poor under the ANC government. While ministers and MECs go to private hospitals, public hospitals become more and more dysfunctional, violating one of the principal rights of human access to quality health care. Free quality health care is one of the 7 cardinal pillars of the economic freedom fighters. We'll continue to inspire and speak on behalf of the poor communities and the voiceless until we take power in 2019. We'll ensure quality health care.
Honourable Member, your time is
to
now
all
expired.
South Africans.
The ANC.
The ANC welcomes and commends the Minister
Order,
of
honourable members. Order, honourable members.
What is the problem?
The member want to read a statement.
Okay.
Order, honourable members. Honourable members.
On a point of order, Chair.
Can we give an opportunity to the member to read the statement? What is the point of order, honourable member?
Chairperson, I think it's utterly disgraceful that Honourable Member Zulu should be saying in this House to some of the members, go back to Australia, go back to France. No, because you are white. What's wrong with being white in this country? Is this parliamentary for her to say things like that? In the presence of all of us. She doesn't belong here with us.
Thank you. No, honourable member. Honourable member, I will check the recording. Honourable Minister, order. Honourable Minister Zulu, did you order? Did you make that remark? Honourable Minister, order. I can't hear the Minister. I will check the recording, honourable members. You see, honourable members, when you sit and interject here, while I'm asking a specific member of the House a question, I can't hear what she's saying. No, listen, honourable members, listen here. Don't shout at me, okay? Don't shout at the chair because you won't achieve anything by doing so. I'll simply postpone the ruling. Continue, honourable member.
The ANC welcomes and commends the Minister of Health, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, on the groundbreaking pricing agreement reached in collaboration with a number of international organizations to accelerate the availability of the first affordable single-pill HIV treatment regimen. It is estimated that the price reduction will result in savings of up to 11.7 billion rand over the next 6 years. This will enable South Africa to enroll more patients on treatment. We further welcome the call by government that all sexually active South Africans, especially the youth, to continue to live a healthy life which adopts preventative measures such as continuously practicing safer sex by abstaining, being faithful and condomizing, and regularly testing for HIV. Thank you.
The IFP.
Honourable House Chairperson, the IFP would like to thank the people of Endumeni for voting for the IFP in the by-election of 27 September 2017, Ward 3, in ensuring that the IFP continues to lead that municipality. It must be noted that the vacancy occurred after the IFP had dismissed its own councillor who had been involved in underhanded dealings with the ANC and was bribed to cause instability in that municipality. The IFP will not tolerate corruption, whatever form it manifests itself, particularly because corruption robs communities of service delivery, stability, and good governance. We are aware of the dirty tricks and the efforts of the ANC to destabilize IFP-led municipalities, as was the case in Ngutu and most recently in Ndumeni, and with an intention to extend this rate of instability to Jozini, Abaqulusi, and Mtubatuba. The ANC must understand that it cannot undo through unscrupulous tactics the results and outcomes of August 3, 2016. The ward in question had been for time immemorial been an ANC stronghold, and on 3 August, like millions of South Africans across the country, the people of Ward 3 rejected the ANC. It was therefore not a surprise that the ANC saw this council and the community as the soft target to relaunch themselves in Ndumeni. However, the people guided by their conscience have found a home in the IFP. The IFP congratulates people of Ndumeni for remaining steadfast in their resolve to push back the advances of corruption. And the IFP is committed to serving their interests and to ensure that they receive service delivery. And stop
Honourable Member, your time has expired. The Freedom Front Plus.
Agbare voorzitter, ek wil net vir die agbare minister Zulu sê, ek het vir haar slegte nuus. Die wit mense is hier om te bly en ons sal ons nie laat boelie deur die agbare minister of lede van die ANC nie. Agbare voorzitter, die agbare minister van polisie het gesê hy gaan die agbare president versoek om die weermag te ontplooi om die polisie by te staan met die bekamping van misdaad. Nou dit is 'n erkenning van die agbare minister van polisie dat die polisie nie meer misdaad in Suid-Afrika kan beheer nie. Met ander woorde, misdaad is buite beheer. Die Vryheidsfront Plus se standpunt is dat dit is nie ongewoon dat die weermag bystand verleen nie, alhoewel dit nie wenslik is nie. Maar die Vryheidsfront Plus wil ook waarsku vandag dat die Suid-Afrikaanse nasionale weermag tans nie op standaard is om die polisie by te staan met polisiewerk nie. Hulle is nie opgeleid daarvoor nie. Hulle weet nie wat om te doen nie. En hulle is nie gedissiplineerd genoeg nie. En die Vryheidsfront Plus wil vandag waarsku dat as u die weermag saam met die polisie gaan ontplooi in sekere gebiede, gaan u nie net een Marikane geval hê nie, maar baie. Polisielede is daar om die gemeenskap te beskerm. Soldate word opgelei om mense dood te skiet. Dit is die verskil. Ek dankie.
The ANC.
Thank you, Chair. The ANC commends the law enforcement agency for acting swiftly in arresting the suspect in connection with the rape of one student and the stabbing of another at Nelson Mandela University in Port Elizabeth recently. A 29-year-old suspect has been arrested and was found to be in possession of a computer and cell phone of one of the victims. He has already appeared before a court. The ANC believes that the safety of students at higher institutions is paramount and calls upon all stakeholders of the police to work together to ensure the guarantee student safety, especially female students. We welcome the commitment by the university to heighten the level of security across all campuses. We further welcome the university undertaking to expand its partnership with the South African Police Service and Metro Police to obtain extra support to the students in and around campuses. Other measures put in place are also the improvement of CCTV monitoring, control checks at entrances, taxi drop-off points, and bus stops. We call upon all institutions of higher learning to prioritize student safety and implement anti-crime activities that guarantees student safety on and off campuses. I thank you.
Cope.
On behalf of the Congress of the People, I move without notice.
It's a time for statement, Honorable Okota.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. The ANC, are you going to move her statement?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Yes, yes. Thanks.
Chairperson, yesterday we saw the 11th cabinet reshuffle in 8 years. A total of 133 pawn moves. And the ANC's impotent response from a submissively prone position is indicative that the party itself is captured by one individual who does as he pleases, breaks the law, abuses people, abuses power, because that individual has long ceased to be bound by the oath of office. The consequence of this is that this country may well find itself faced with a nuclear program, something that's going to destroy the future of many generations of South Africans. That is our statement, sir.
The ANC.
Thank you very much, House Chair. The African National Congress strongly believes that the tourism